Families and friends, thank you for tuning into Deep Roots TV. You know it's your favorite Rasta man again. Family, as you see, there's a whole bunch of crowd on the screen, and I want you to let me know, do you remember what we just went through 2020 to 2022? The lockdown that was unprecedented. The pandemic that was unprecedented. Well, revealing information is coming out about the efficiency and the benefits now. If you have not turned off at this video yet, you're interested. So I'm going to let you hear from a world-renowned cardiologist, and I'm going to go down into this. It's going to be a minute, so if you have time, hopefully you're listening to this early in the morning, late at night, let it run, go to bed, listening to it. It's not for spite. It's purposeful. It's going to be long, ladies and gentlemen. So listen to this world-renowned cardiologist, and we're going to get down into it. As you see, any video,
having
music,
been double jabbed and being one of the first to take the Pfizer vaccine, I have, after several months, critically appraising the data, speaking to eminent scientists in Oxford, Stanford, and Harvard, speaking to 2 investigative medical journalists, and being contacted by 2 Pfizer whistleblowers, reluctantly concluded that this vaccine is not completely safe and has unprecedented harms, which leads me to conclude that it needs to be suspended until all the raw data has been released for independent analysis.
You hear that? You hear that, people?
Is a respected and influential.
Now, that is not from me, no. This is from a world-renowned cardiologist. And what I'm explaining to you, any video or audio here in here, is for fair use. I'm just reporting the news and teaching for benefits of historical documentation about what the world went through in 2020 to 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, I know many of you have gotten your jab, and if you have not gotten it, in accordance with the United States government and the World Health Organization and the Jamaican government, the vaccine prevents COVID death. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to let you know that, because all these people that you see on the screen, they are regular people, and they knew that something was wrong. They knew what was going on already. From me a little boy, me hear Rasta man and make certain talk, and people laugh after them. Well, at this point, they have brought up a petition in the UK Parliament, in the Queen's Court, in the EU, in the European nation, to test what was the efficiency of this, and also to challenge the government. So I have another clip here that this one is going to be a little bit more lengthy, and ladies and gentlemen, it's stunning. So if you have not taken your job, or even if you have taken your job, I would suggest you watch this. And if you know anybody that have taken a job or is about to take the job, you're guaranteed, I would suggest you share this for me, please, because you know, in this world, if you have not figured out that technology company, medical company are working together, and there's a medical technical experiment that have been launched on the world, you are guaranteed, then you are lying to yourself. And as Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the World Health Organization, the NIH, all of those people, the United States government, the England government, most first world country are collaborating, and it's information that they want to suppress, because what they are doing is actually behavioral modification. They are projecting their truth on people. That's why I'm happy you subscribe to Deep Roots, because I'm going to go around that. The media is not there giving you the truthful information. You are guaranteed? The media is not there giving you the truthful information. It's a script. It's a Napoleon technique when you tell the lie over and over and over and over and over again. So that's why I'm telling you, I'm showing you this documentation here, right? I'm showing you this documentation because not everyone get the chance to see certain things. So when you come to Deep Roots TV, you should be hearing things that's going to inspire you and enlighten your knowledge. You are going to welcome to the Rastaman College. So with no further ado, this is a petition to debate the relative safety of the vaccine or the so-called vaccine. Because what I'm finding out, we understand vaccine as like the malaria vaccine and, you know, polio vaccine. This is a totally different type of vaccination or injection. This is something that has this is what they call a mRNA vaccine. Okay? So it has protein molecule that are bonded and use the protein as a vehicle to get inside. And when it gets inside of you, it spreads to all your organs. That's what the cardiologist doctor said. And that's what is being documented. You are guaranteed? And until the NIH changed the definition of gain of function, that's what it is. So here is the video of the Parliament briefing, and I want you to pay close attention, ladies and gentlemen. Close attention. You are guaranteed? I'm going to be interjecting. You are guaranteed, so I'm adding context to the content. Okay. So YouTube don't say that order. I plagiarized the product.
Ladies and gentlemen, Elliot Coburn to move the motion. Has considered e-petition 602171 relating to the safety of the COVID-19 vaccines. On behalf of the Petitions Committee, I will read out the prayer of this petition, which states that there has been a significant increase in heart attacks and related health issues since the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines.
Okay, my family. This is the first time I do this, so I'll try click back and forth sometimes. So if you say, I pause it, just bear with me. I that I go on, but I want to go on because I not to understand the technology like that. I just see me that search for it, but I want to know if you understand. Look on the mass crowd that came out in many countries from Australia, Europe, Ireland, United States, protesting against this. And 2 years later, after people are experiencing adverse effect, now these people, after they done their experiment and got all the data that they want, because even right now everybody phone have still have the trace software on it, and you can't get it off. And if you know, leave the comment inside here so I can figure out how to get it off, because all Apple phone, all Android phone still have the COVID contact trace software on it. So there were many agendas that was with this. You guarantee many agendas.
This needs immediate and full scientific investigation to establish if there's any possible link with the COVID-19 vaccination rollout. It is the duty of government to ensure that the prescribed medical interventions of its response to coronavirus are safe. We believe that the recent and increasing volume of data relating to cardiovascular problems since the COVID-19 vaccine rollout began is enough to warrant a full public inquiry. This petition has amassed over 107,000 signatures, including signatories from my own Carshall and Wallington constituency. And I'd like to first begin by putting on record my gratitude to the Petitions Committee clerks and the team behind the scenes for organising today's debate. but also particularly the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, or MHRA, who met with me recently to brief me on their vaccine safety surveillance strategy.
All right, so that
Now,
means...
Sir Roger, throughout the course of my speech, I'll be pointing out why I do not think that the government should be launching a public inquiry into vaccine safety. I think it would be a waste of taxpayers' money, and I do not think it is necessary for reasons that I will go through.
You see that? You me tell you, say him at the crowny. I him go meet with the people them and tell them what he say. All right, me now go top it.
Throughout the course of my speech. But just to give a bit of background, Sir Roger, the COVID-19 vaccine has been at the centre of 4 previous e-petitions debates here in Westminster Hall, as well as the subject of many parliamentary debates, questions and committee work since the pandemic hit. I think it's worth remembering that for the first 26 months of the pandemic, over 178,000 people across the UK died within 28 days of a positive test for COVID-19. And it remains my position that vaccination is the single most effective way to reduce deaths and severe illness from COVID-19.
Yeah, vaccination!
Over 53 million people in the UK have received at least their first COVID-19 vaccine. And I would like to put on record my thanks to the amazing staff and indeed the volunteers who contributed to this gargantuan operation.
For real, and them are the real soldier in our war.
Of effective national collaboration. Indeed, I would go so far as to say that as part of our public inquiry into COVID, I would urge the government to look at how this was such a success and how we can learn from the success of the vaccine rollout. And
a crown it is. A straight crown it is, people. Listen. I know him are the beef for the thing, you know. Me I just make him, me I show you say there's always an agent within. Even when them do an inquiry on the effectiveness and the benefits, they don't want you to know because it wasn't about no effectiveness and benefit. There is a different agenda here, people. You are going to Rasta man are telling a long time. Let me just get to it. The Rasta man are showing us attack them attack on us straight up. You are getting marked straight up. And you are allow tyranny to violate you. Because humans has been changed slowly, crept and violated. Them rights has been overtaken. The forces are against them and them admit it. Them get beat down. And the whole point of this whole video is to show you say, it's when you're right, and when you're wrong, and when you're in, and when you're out, you're out. For years, me hear them laugh off a Rasta man and say Rasta man a madman and he that and see there. Me watch the world come in my time to see the entire world lay down their rights and the governments of the nation collaborate right in front of our face and establish that they are our parents and our overseers, and we took it like a champ. You understand? We take it like a champ. And the next time, we won't be able to do that because we have allowed right now our videos, our audio, our facial recognition, our biometrics. When they were taking our nose swabs, they were developing their DNA database. And when they put their software on our phone, they were developing their tracking system. When they had us cover our face, they was making sure their biometrics could read your eyes and your forehead. They don't have to see your face because you could change down here. So a lot of the time you see these programs being rolled out, it's not what it's being said it is. We allow Anthony Fauci, an unelected governmental agency nowhere in the world, to dictate when the children in Jamaica go to school, when the children in South America, Haiti and different places, Barbados, go to school. They dictate when we fly. When we got on the plane, they told us we had to dig out with nose and take off with clothes just to travel. Unbelievable. And here we have the parliament saying they're investigating
in future circumstances. Now, of course, it is. I will gladly give way.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. He's obviously done a lot of preparation for this debate. Can I ask him whether part of that preparation includes having looked at the Oracle Films Safe and Effective A Second Opinion, which was produced about a month ago and has
All
already
right,
had
and that the
more
film
than
you
1
see me
million
like
views
intro it with
online.
safe and
most people
effective.
think is highly
It's an
persuasive.
oracle film.
I'm grateful
Right?
to my honourable friend for that intervention. I've not seen the publication he mentions. I have read
Of course he's
a
not
lot
going
of the
to see it
significant
because he's a
amounts of
crony.
material that have been shoved through my constituency office door by a large number of anti-vax protesters in my own constituency.
You hear
who
what
have flight
we're
posted my
called? The
office on
people
no
them
less
were
than a
right
dozen
are
occasions,
called
intimidating my 18-year-old
anti-vaxxers.
apprentice and the people who live above my constituency office. And considering the content of that literature includes climate change denial, moon landing denial, etc., etc., I'm...
Oh, okay, so now he's making a case that those people that did not want to take a tested and proven effective vaccine are climate deniers, moon landing deniers, and all those things. So what they're doing are anti-vaxxers. So that's the strategy of the, you know, what they call a psychological warfare right there. Him want to now alienate you and call you all kind of names. And that's what these people do in politics. This is a politician.
To ignore their content completely. Now, of course, it's impossible, as I said, Sir Roger, to vaccinate every person in this country, and nor should it be thrust upon people without their consent. People
But that's
have a
exactly
right
what
to know
happened.
what is being put in their bodies and the autonomy to make the decision on whether or not to take a vaccination. As such, it's not only the job of the state to ensure that vaccines are safe for use and continually reviewed, but also that knowledge of why it is safe and effective is communicated well to our constituents. And with that in mind, I want to briefly outline the steps taken to review the safety of COVID-19 vaccines pre-rollout and the continuous monitoring that happens to the safety of vaccines going forward.
Please let me hear it now.
All vaccines must be tested through a series of clinical trials to establish their efficacy and safety.
But
and
it
have a
didn't
product
happen with
licence
this one.
before they can be made available for widespread use in humans. The MHRA is responsible for regulating all medicines and medical devices in the UK by ensuring that they work and are acceptably safe. Starting in 2020, a dedicated team of MHRA scientists and clinicians carried out a rigorous, scientific and detailed review of all the available data in the development of COVID-19 vaccines, including from laboratory preclinical studies, clinical trials, manufacturing and quality controls, product sampling and testing of the final vaccine,
Lie, Imatel. Y'all can see, cause me have the video here where the Pfizer international market president said in a EU meeting, you are going to parliamentarian Ron, parliamentarian, why name again? Rob Roos. Listen to him, cause me have it right here, don't ramp with me. A lie him a tell.
The Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? If not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data with this committee? And I really want a straight answer, yes or no, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market. And from that point of view, we had to do everything at risk.
Okay. Then how am I gonna tell me? How am I gonna tell me that? A lie ma tell me, I tell you, say a lie ma tell people, yo, look here. What them people here do is them take people for fool. You are going to them take people for fool, my family. Lie him a tell. How dare him sit down up this one lie? But you see it like me, I tell you, say, a lot of people don't know. Here is another MP, Cristian Terhes. Okay? I want you to hear this, your man, because this your man, you deal with it passionately. You are going to...
One death, it's a tragedy. 1 million deaths, it's statistics. This is a quote attributed to Joseph Stalin. Now, when I was reading the quote, of Ursula von der Leyen, of what she said in that press conference on December 1st, 2021, from the stage of the European Commission, where she said, and I restate it, there are 150 million people in Europe who are not vaccinated. I was completely shocked. See, when we look at the citizens of the European Union, we see not 150 million people who are vaccinated and the others who might be vaccinated. We look at 400 million individuals, persons with basic fundamental rights, which have the right and the liberty, or should have at least, in the current European Union, to decide if they want to get a medical treatment or not. So this press conference of the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, it's a turning point for the Western civilization in the European Union. When we talk about the Western civilization, we don't talk about a geographical place. We are talking about a set of values that created what we call today Occident or Western world, that everybody is referring to, that a lot of billions of people from around the world are trying to get here. This is the reason why we have the issue of the illegal immigration all over the place. Because this is the only place in the world that created and creates prosperity for people. And the reason why it's doing that is because it's accepting every person. And it is acknowledging these basic fundamental rights that we all have. This is the reason why people are not trying to run in China or in Russia, where you see dictatorships and tyrants. People from there are trying to come here because they are pursuing freedom. So what we heard on December 1st, this is changing. It's a game changer.
Yeah, because the
for
people
everything related to the European Union. We've seen in the past 2 years and a half, since the current president of the Commission is leading the European Union, unbelievable attacks to the sovereignty of the member states of the European Union. But what we've seen now, and this is unprecedented, she's questioning, this is the problem, and I repeat, she is questioning the basic fundamental rights of every citizen, of every human being living
because
inside
they
of the
give
European
it up,
Union.
people. Give it up.
Because if she's raising the issue, let's talk about the mandatory vaccine. Let's have a discussion.
Discussion about what? Talk about that.
About forcing people to do something against their will.
Rasta don't tell you me not do it.
Their freedom of choice.
Which choice?
As it is done always in these EU institutions, everything is a compromise.
Me not compromise my rights.
In the parliament. Everything that people say here, everything that majority of the people vote, it's not a matter of right or wrong. No, let's have a compromise. What I'm asking the European citizens, where do you draw the line? Where do you compromise?
Where?
How much of that power you want to give to the European Commission, to unelected bureaucrats, to decide
Dr. Fatima talk about
what to be vaccinated with in order to live a free citizen, if you can call it that way, as Ivan said. So what she's doing right now, it is an attack to even the existence of the European Union. Because if you go in the Treaty of the European Union, Article 3 says the following, and I quote, "The Union shall offer its citizens an area of freedom, security, and justice." Freedom is not an abstract concept.
No, it's not.
Freedom, liberty, it's individual. It's personal. The government cannot say, well, you have the choices between A and B. No, I want to be the one making those choices. You have to create for me an environment where I can exercise my right to choose. It's not you giving me options. It's me choosing my own options.
Yeah.
So for us, it was mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling.
Even from
Even
the highest
me.
level in the EU. Ursula von der Leyen coming publicly and say, well, let's have a debate about it.
Debate
About stripping the basic fundamental rights of all the human beings living inside of the European Union. There's another article in the Treaty of the European Union, Article 6, that says the following, and I quote, "The Union recognizes the rights, freedom and principles set out in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union." And here's the first page of that charter. The first article is talking about human dignity. You see, it's not talking about the state. It's not talking about the Commission, about the Parliament or the Council. The first article of this charter is emphasizing the role of human dignity and says human dignity is inviolable.
You don't have no dignity. You don't allow, well, me not say allow. You don't have a life to live. You see, Kalanti tell us no food can't eat with no money. So no run regarding a foreigner, I don't know how to plan nothing, no cassava for make no bammy. You don't know how to plan no peas. You don't have to go to the store go buy something. And right now, what them a deal with them a develop a digital money and them a turn off your paper money. And you're not going to have none. You have to go carter and bow down. So me I tell you straight up, anywhere you come from, I could have jam down, could have Haiti. I'm telling you, build a local spot where you can plant up some food in the back. You are going to me I'll make this money continue to talk. I'm like how I'm talking.
It must be respected and protected.
Must be.
Article 2 is talking about the right of the charter.
Yeah.
The first article is talking about human dignity. You see, it's not talking about the state.
No.
It's not talking about the Commission, about the Parliament or the Council.
Yeah.
The first article of this charter is emphasizing the role of human dignity and says human dignity is inviolable. It must be respected and protected. Article 2 is talking about the right of life. But Article 3, it says the following, and I quote, "Everyone has the right to respect for his or her physical and mental integrity. In the fields of medicine or biology, the following must be respected in particular: the free and informed consent of the person concerned according to the procedures laid down by the law."
You see, some people don't know the line and some people don't read. You hear what the man say? A free and informed consent. And them been telling you them don't know where you think come from. How come nobody? How come per Orange Man? How come Orange Man come out of power and he before he got out of power, him tell you where the virus came from? And since people, how many people protest? Look for the protest. Look what the greatest pandemic in our lifetime. How come nobody now asks? How come there's a new president in the United States? How come all other people, them government in the world go along with this? How come this virus was everywhere in the world and in the sunshine and rain everywhere in the world? How come? And people just blindly, and because to me, the world had an agenda and there was one villain there. They played the villain, the good guy, bad cop thing on purpose. All of these countries are in on it because the goal is to chip everybody. And I don't doubt that they might have started that already. As a matter of fact, I know them started already because remember about 20 years ago, them started in Florida. Yaganti. So they might have started a nanotechnology experiment. But uno go and run in. When Rasta man telling us say, yo, don't run in. We're not taking the vaccine. We want vaccine. Uno get upset because we want gala. Uno want get joke. Uno take man for fall. You are guarantee. You want get joke and me want give the joke.
According to the procedures laid down by the law. And I repeat that. The free and informed consent of the person. These are the basic values, the fundamental values that are the foundation of the European Union. Now, if she is challenging the foundation of this union, which was not based on institutions or governments, It was based on creating, as the treaty says, an area for its citizens, an area of freedom, security, and justice. Well, how can you have justice? How can you have security anymore if you are violating the basic fundamental rights of the EU citizens?
Good question.
I heard and I saw articles in the media saying, well, you know, some people from the right are contesting this. Look at us. I'm from the, let's say, the right side of the parliament. Cristian is from the right. Francesca and Ivan are from the non-affiliate. But Tassis is from the left, Greens. See, it's not a matter of right or left. It's a matter of right and wrong.
Yeah.
And clearly Ursula von der Leyen, what she's doing right now is wrong for the European Union, and it is wrong for the people living inside of the European Union. The reason why we wanted to have this first press conference about what she said is just to raise these issues, and we can guarantee you that this will not be the last one in regards to this. And before I close, I want to say a few more things. This Sunday, I was present at a huge protest that took place here in Brussels.
You hear that?
March for Freedom. Over
March.
120,000 people, according to many people who looked at, who counted everybody who was present there, participated at this meeting. I want to congratulate and thank everybody who participated at this meeting. Many people came from far away from Belgium and even from outside of Belgium. They came here in Brussels to march for freedom. These people wanted to be free. They want to make their own choices. I met in that group people who were not vaccinated, but I met people who were vaccinated. And I asked them, why are you protesting? Because I want to be free. I want to make my own choice. I don't want the government, the commission, or anybody else, especially unelected bureaucrats, to force me, to coerce me to do one thing or another. Nevertheless, I want to thank the firefighters who led the huge crowd. They've done an outstanding job. And unfortunately, they were met with water cannons in front of the European Commission.
Tyranny!
What shocked me when I got there, the European Commission was surrounded by barbed wires. So it was the Commission, a line of police officers geared up for war, a barbed wire, and the people. We haven't seen this kind of images in the European Union. Us, that are from the East, we've seen it before, but not here. And since this will be the last press conference for this year, I want to tell all of you guys, do not be afraid. We are here to fight for you. Merry Christmas, and God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, him a want agent too. You are going to because him in it too. You are going to, so I'm going to pick up forward on the video, yeah. Really, the part of the video where I want you to sight, and not even the next youth there. I want the next person come up now because him talk long enough. You are going to?
Nobody from the opposition benches? No? Danny Kruger.
Sir Roger, and it's a pleasure to serve under you, and I'm very grateful. I'm grateful to my honourable friend, the member for Carshalton and Wallington. He gave a very good defence of the vaccine programme and of the MHRA, and I respect that. I do regret his response to my honourable friend, member for Christchurch, I think, who raised the point about medical expertise, which cast some doubt on the vaccines. And my friend chose to smear all of the vaccine programme.
Look at all man with him man by him.
There are lunatics out there who are making absurd and outrageous claims, but
if you still about, just click the subscribe button. I'll make you hear it good, man. I'll make you hear it good.
There, of course, are lunatics out there who are making absurd and outrageous claims, but I do suggest that there are many reasonable and respectable people who have anxieties about the vaccine programme, and particularly, of course, in their own cases, those of themselves and their families who have suffered as a result of the programme. And I'm a member of the All-Party Parliamentary Group. My friend, member for Christchurch, chairs looking at vaccine injuries. And we met, I think there was the first meeting of the APPG last week in committee room in Portcullis House, and we met there. It was only, I'm afraid, a tiny handful of colleagues, but well over 100 members of the public attended, which isn't the usual story for an APPG. And I felt somewhat ashamed on behalf of Parliament. This was the first time that those members of the public, families of the bereaved, themselves injured citizens, had had the opportunity to be in a room with members of this House. And I'm very pleased that we are now having this debate, and I'm particularly pleased that we have the opportunity for members of the public to hear from the Minister about this topic. And I should say to members of the public watching that we have here a very good Minister who is genuinely committed to health and to public health, and has shown a real interest in this topic and in the effect of COVID policy since before, when she was a backbench MP. And I would say that the UK as a whole, and while many questions need to be answered about our COVID response, is by no means the worst offender. We're not Canada or New Zealand or China, places where they think they can exterminate COVID by depriving the population of the most basic civil liberties. But we still do have, I'm afraid, questions to ask ourselves, and even much to be ashamed of. I'm particularly ashamed, and I put it on record in hindsight, of my own vote to dismiss the care workers who didn't want to take the vaccine. And I very much hope that the 40,000 care workers who lost their jobs can be reinstated and indeed compensated. Now, a group of us, including, I think, the Minister, held out against compulsory vaccination of health workers when that was proposed by the government last winter, and that resistance, I think, turned the tide to a degree on government policy, and we emerged from lockdowns quicker than we might have otherwise. And yet we still have this policy of mass vaccination, and I do want to query this on behalf of constituents who've written to me. And my query starts with this simple point. In October 2020, when the vaccine was getting ready for rollout, Kate Bingham, the head of the Vaccines Agency, said this: "There's going to be no vaccination of people under 18. It's an adult-only vaccine for people over 50, focusing on health workers and care home workers and the vulnerable." Now, why was it extended to the whole population? Government last winter, and that resistance, I think, turned the tide to a degree on government policy, and we emerged from lockdowns quicker than we might have otherwise. And yet we still have this policy of mass vaccination, and I do want to query this on behalf of constituents who've written to me. And my query starts with this simple point. In October 2020, when the vaccine was getting ready for rollout, Kate Bingham, the head of the Vaccines Agency, said this: "There's going to be no vaccination of people under 18. It's an adult-only vaccine for people over 50, focusing on health workers and care home workers and the vulnerable." Now, why was it extended to the whole population? I don't think we've ever had a completely satisfactory answer to that question. And I raise it because my concern is that in extending the vaccination programme, it became an operation in public persuasion. An operation in which dissent is unhelpful or even immoral, justifying suppression, even vilification of those who raise concerns. Happy to give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Would he also question, unlike any other vaccine, the vaccine was actually given to people who'd got natural immunity because they'd actually contracted, and provably contracted the virus, and so they would have had natural immunity. Why were those people vaccinated?
Why? My friend is absolutely right. The best vaccine against COVID is COVID. And many people were indeed naturally immune, and I think there are questions to be asked about the effects of vaccination on the immune system. So now I do understand why. My honourable friend, the member for Castle Tell
me why then.
A very understandable point about the importance of resisting misinformation, and certainly there, as I mentioned, many crazy theories out there. Which
and the government give the most misinformation. Just hold on, people, hold on. The man say resisting misinformation, and we are here say a fuck with the man them they tell we.
But we still do have, I'm afraid, questions to ask ourselves, and even much to be ashamed of. I'm particularly ashamed, and I put it on record in hindsight, of my own vote to dismiss the care workers.
Okay, at least he admit that.
Society, not the individual, Sir Roger, but that, again, it feels to me a profound break with medical ethics. And a lot of people are asking what the vaccine does to children and young people. And Dr. Whitty is right that the benefit to healthy children seems to be essentially nil. And yet there are genuine questions to be asked. And I do not verify these questions, I merely ask them on behalf of my constituents.
But
how do we explain the increase in the rates of myocarditis?
Hold on. Did you know they added this vaccine to the list of vaccine children are supposed to take? And the man I tell you, say, there's no benefits. And the United States come out with that data, say, probably about 75% to 95% of the children already got it. And this man I just tell you what?
Claim that the vaccine stops transmission. So people should take the jab to protect other people. We were all told that. We all believed that for many months. Last month we heard from Pfizer that their vaccine was never tested to see whether it would stop transmission.
May play the video.
And yet we had the notorious claim by Professor Chris Whitty that even though the vaccine brought no benefit to children, children should be vaccinated to protect wider society.
Why?
Now, I'm all for thinking about society, not the individual, Sir Roger, but that, again, it feels to me a profound break.
Illegal!
And a lot of people are asking what the vaccine does to children and young people. And Dr. Whitty is right that the benefit to healthy children seems to be essentially nil. And yet there are genuine questions to be asked. And I do not verify these questions, I merely ask them on behalf of my constituents. How do we explain the increase in the rates of myocarditis, the increase in heart attacks and the excess deaths among young people?
Excess death, heart attack.
It is plausible, not definitive, but plausible, that the vaccine is responsible for more harms than we know about. And I mentioned in my intervention earlier.
Hold on. That is Member of Parliament, Queens. You see crown no I bottom no I right? I hit me a play. So YouTube, nobody try me a chat about misinformation and disinformation. You need to call up the government cause them a chat about mis and this. You are going to
verify these questions. I merely ask them on behalf of my constituents. How do we explain the increase in the rates of myocarditis, the increase in heart attacks and the excess deaths among young people? And indeed in the general population, it is plausible, not definitive, but plausible, that the vaccine is responsible for more harms than we know about. And I mentioned in my intervention earlier that we know from the yellow card scheme that up to 1 in 200 people vaccinated report an adverse reaction. And that is in itself bad enough. But we also know that yellow card reports, the adverse effects are significantly underreported through the yellow card scheme. Based on the MHRA's own research, there may be as many as 10 times more serious adverse reactions, serious ones, not just any ones. There may be 10 times more serious adverse reactions than the yellow card system shows. Happy to give way.
Does he agree with me that it's not? It's perhaps important for the minister to explain how those people who say they've experienced damage from the vaccine can have themselves heard, not just via the yellow card scheme, not just via the module in the public or existing public inquiry, and not just an application for vaccine damage compensation. That there needs to be more meaningful ways in which people can engage with experiences of damage.
Then people don't get the information right.
And I absolutely agree. And I think that today is a very important moment for the Minister to hear from members here.
A piece of fresh and information and misleading information the government make you and work with YouTube and Google to block you when you tell the truth. And that I go and speak the truth to the youth.
Now, I mentioned these rather terrifying facts, and there may be innocent explanations for them, and I very much hope they are. If these are conspiracy theories...
No. Well, you say something about facts. No. Me not like that they talk then. No. More hear that clearly.
Compensation. That there needs to be more meaningful ways in which people can engage with their experiences of damage.
I'm very grateful to the Honourable Leyen, and I absolutely agree. And I think that today is a very important moment for the Minister to hear from members here on behalf of residents. And I would encourage a far greater engagement with citizens who have themselves suffered from vaccine damage or even lost loved ones through it. Now, I mentioned these rather terrifying facts, and there may be innocent explanations for them, and I very much hope they are. If these are conspiracy theories, we need them to be comprehensively and courteously debunked. So I have 4 questions for the Minister to close, Sir Roger. First, will she review the vaccination of children? We know that children have strong naturally acquired immunity and that the chance of death from COVID for a healthy child is only 1 in 2 million. So I believe that we should follow other countries like Denmark and stop vaccinating children altogether, but I invite the Minister to consider reviewing that aspect of the policy. Second, will she make representations in government and with Baroness Hallett that the terms of reference for her inquiry should be broadened to explicitly include the efficacy and safety of the vaccines? And I hear what my honourable friend says is absolutely right, that the inquiry does include reference to the vaccination programme and its effects. And he may well be right that that is sufficient and that the review will properly consider the topics that we're discussing today. I hope that that is the case. But I think that needs to be made more
that's
explicit.
the whole
So I
point.
invite the Minister to comment. Happy to give way.
I actually wrote to Baroness Hallett asking her to ensure that it was specifically in the terms of reference, that it should cover the issue of safety of vaccines and the impact of vaccines.
And that man here,
as a
fast
result
forward
of
it
not
and make
just
you
my
hear.
representations, but representations from others, the terms of reference were amended to make it quite clear that vaccines and the impact of vaccines and the potential damage of vaccines is included within the terms of reference.
For that clarification, it concerns me that it took his representations to even get the vaccine, the effect of the vaccines considered by the inquiry. And I suggest we need to go further and talk about efficacy and safety, not just the impact. So I think we need to be quite explicit about what we want answers to. These issues need to be directly covered.
Correct.
Now, this inquiry, I think we do need the public inquiry to consider this because of the compromised nature of medical regulation in our country. And I mentioned earlier that the MHRA is funded by the pharmaceutical companies who produce the drugs and vaccines that it regulates. And there might be some universe in which this makes sense, but I don't think this is that universe. I don't think it's
what the man said.
Did it take his representations to even get the vaccine, the effect of the vaccines considered by the inquiry? I suggest we need to go further and talk about efficacy and safety, not just the impact. So I think we need to be quite explicit about what we want answers to. These issues need to be directly covered.
Please.
Now, this inquiry, I think we do need the public inquiry to consider this because of the compromised nature of medical regulation in our country. And I mentioned earlier that the MHRA is funded by the pharmaceutical companies who produce the drugs and vaccines that it regulates. And there might be some universe in which this makes sense, but I don't think this is that universe. I don't think it's right. And third, we need to do a lot more for the injured and bereaved. And as the Honourable Lady mentioned, I agree with all of my friend from Christchurch's recommendations, and we'll hear from him shortly about what needs to be done to raise the threshold for compensation for the injured and the speed of payouts. And I also agree with him that we need clinics for people with adverse reactions, just as we do.
Buy out the people and be quiet.
Following this, we need to change the power imbalance. I am sorry on behalf of Parliament that this is the first proper debate we've had on this subject. I regret that victims and families have had to struggle so hard to get the engagement of the system. I hope the Minister will agree to meet with some of the people who are here today and other representatives of families affected by the vaccines for a proper exchange of information and ideas. And I hope that she will request that Dame June Rain of the MHRA meets with them as well.
And
I want to hope that end by hoping that with the new government that takes over this week, the current Minister herself has only just been recently appointed, will stay in post, and that we can start a new chapter in the story of COVID. No more remote power telling people what to do. Let's put truth and justice back into our public life and restore trust in the experts we rely on. Thank you, Sir Roger.
Yo,
we should be all right.
See gravy, you know.
But bear in mind there are 3 people wishing to speak, and I
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I am, as has been referred to now, the chair of the all-party parliamentary group for the victims of COVID-19 vaccine damage, and we've had the group is now set up and running, and we had this enormously well-supported meeting in Portcullis House last Thursday. I agree with the legitimate concerns of the 100,000 plus people who signed this petition, and I share their belief that the recent and increasing volume of data relating to cardiovascular problems is enough of concern to warrant an inquiry into safety. And although, as I've referred to, the big Hallett inquiry into COVID-19 is going to cover, I think, a lot of this ground, that won't be for many years. And in the meantime, people are being encouraged to have more and more boosters, and they want to know, understandably, what the impact of those boosters is upon their health and what the potential risks and rewards are.
More booster! Booster!
I, as chairman of the APPG, and having taken an issue in this subject for about a year and produced a private member's bill, another one of which I hope to be able to produce, have a second reading for next month, I've come across the findings of coroners' reports up and down the country. Those coroners have found that deaths have been caused directly by COVID-19 vaccines.
Hold on. This is out of member of parliament.
APPG and
listen,
taken an issue in this subject for about a year and produced a private member's bill, another one of which I hope to be able to produce, have a second reading for next month. I've come across the findings of coroners' reports up and down the country. Those coroners have found that deaths have been caused directly by COVID-19 vaccines. And I've spoken to some of the bereaved, and indeed I spoke to the gentleman who was referred to by my honourable friend, who attended our meeting on Thursday, whose wife was a journalist in Newcastle. And I've seen in my own eyes the suffering that those people are going through as bereaved or as people who are still suffering the ill effects of the adverse reactions. And I'm sorry that my honourable friend, in introducing this debate, didn't really have much to say about the people whom we know have suffered death or serious injury as a result of the vaccines. If I may say to him, I think he showed himself to be rather the victim of producer capture, and the producer in this case being the MHRA. He doesn't seem to have allowed his researches to go far further than the MHRA. Has he, for example, looked at what's been happening in Germany, where the German, they have an institute called the Paul Ehrlich Institute, and that is the German regulator responsible for vaccine safety. And on the 20th of July, they confirmed that 1 in 5,000 people were affected by a serious effect after vaccination.
Serious?
And that reflected also a finding that they published earlier in the year, in which they tried to raise the alert that 1 in 5,000 vaccinated people has a serious side effect, such as heart muscle inflammation. And statistically, they said every 10th person must expect a severe consequence from having a course of 3 or 4 vaccines. And the Institute uses the WHO definition of a serious adverse event, meaning one which results in hospitalisation, is life-threatening or life-changing. And after a 4-dose course, the risk of a report to their system of a serious adverse effect is 1 in 1,250. Now, that is serious information coming from the regulator in another country which is highly respected for the quality of its healthcare. And isn't it interesting also that the number of adverse reports referred to there is far fewer than the number of adverse reports which led to the 1976 swine flu vaccine being withdrawn. Some members may recall in 1976, Gerald Ford, President of the United States at the time, was panicked by swine flu into organising a vaccination campaign. And when reports emerged of suspected adverse reactions, including heart attacks, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and there were 53 reported deaths, people began to worry about the safety of the vaccine. And the government halted that mass vaccination programme in December of that same year. So in that case, the government acted on far fewer adverse events than we have been talking about during this debate, and decided that it was no longer in the balance of risk and reward was that it was too risky to continue with that vaccination.
But them don't care about you.
So let's look at these facts, and let's not be just beholden to the MHRA. And if this was a debate
ask you know, why nobody not inquire about where it come from? Cause the people them where we inquire no. Yo, people, I joke, but me, I just laugh.
So, Roger, I would have masses of material which I could bring before us for that. But what I'd also say is this, that the government seems to be in denial about the risks of these vaccines.
No, they're
Only
complicit.
This morning, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer for England was on the radio saying the boosters were, and I quote, perfectly safe and effective.
Hey!
But, Sir Roger, they are not perfectly safe. And there's a question about whether they're effective, but that's for another debate. That they are not perfectly safe is now admitted by the government. Indeed, the UK Health Security Agency has issued a guide to the COVID-19 autumn booster. And seen a copy of this. It comes out with the request that you go and get another booster from your GP. Unfortunately, the covering letter from the NHS makes no reference to any risks associated with the vaccine. But if one actually looks at this document, which is included within the envelope, it says a guide to the autumn booster, and one goes down and it talks about serious side effects.
Yeah, man, you must read, man, read.
Cases of inflammation of the heart,
read before you get anything where governmentally you have to take forget the job.
Reported very rarely after both the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. These cases have been seen mostly in younger men and within several days of vaccination. Most of the people have felt better and recovered quickly following rest and simple treatments. And then it says you should seek medical advice. What it doesn't say is what happens to those people who do not recover. And that's what I would like to concentrate on in the remainder of my remarks. Those people, if they are disabled to the extent of 60% or more, may be eligible for payments under the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme. And they might get £120,000. But that scheme in itself is not fit for purpose because it talks about terms of disability, which is not necessarily well described in the context of an autoimmune condition, such as those who are suffering from the consequences of COVID-19 vaccine damage. And what about all those people who are only 59% disabled? There's no financial help for them, and I think even more worrying for many, there's no specific medical help. The government refuses to provide specialist help for these vaccine victims.
Because they don't want to acknowledge they're complicit.
Clinics, vaccine victims are being ignored. I've asked parliamentary questions about this, and I haven't been able to get a satisfactory answer as to why there are no clinics for those victims of vaccine damage. And as a result of the government's behaviour, victims are increasingly telling their loved ones and neighbours and friends about their circumstances, and as a result of that, we are seeing a much lower rate of application to get booster vaccines. And the reason for that is because the government can't suppress information going around amongst ordinary people.
Give information
even though there is very little about this in the mainstream media.
None!
Many people now would not touch a booster with a barge pole, and I include myself amongst those. I'm not anti-vax. I had my first 2 vaccines, but from all that I've seen and know about this, I think that the increase in boosters is now, for many people, counterproductive, and for some people it's also... But what I'd also say is this, that The government seems to be in denial about the risks of these vaccines. Only this morning, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer for England was on the radio saying the boosters were, and I quote, perfectly safe and effective.
They are!
But, Roger, they are not perfectly safe. And there's a question about whether they're effective, but that's for another debate.
They're not?
That they are not perfectly safe is now admitted by the government. Indeed, the UK Health Security Agency has issued a guide to the COVID-19 autumn booster. And
hold on. YouTube, you hear that? Oh, don't even take down the government off of YouTube for misinformation. No.
The Deputy Chief Medical Officer for England was on the radio saying the boosters were, and I quote, perfectly safe and effective. But, Sir Roger, they are not perfectly safe. There's a question about whether they're effective, but that's for another debate. That they are not perfectly safe is now admitted by the government. Indeed, the UK Health Security Agency has issued a guide to the COVID-19 autumn booster, and you, Sir Roger, may have seen a copy of this. It comes out with the request that you go and get another booster from your GP. Unfortunately, the covering letter from the NHS makes no reference to any risks associated with the vaccine.
Why not?
But if one actually looks at this document, which is included within the envelope, it says a guide to the autumn booster, and one goes down and it talks about serious side effects.
You have to read!
Cases of inflammation of the heart, called myocarditis or pericarditis, have been reported very rarely after both the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. These cases have been seen mostly in younger men and within several days of vaccination. Most of the people have felt better and recovered quickly following rest and simple treatments. And then it says you should seek medical advice. What it doesn't say is what happens to those people who do not recover.
You know what happen, man. You go like in a blouse and skirt, know what happen. I'll make him slide up a little bit more.
Vaccines. Therefore, in many senses, it's a misnomer to describe them as vaccines at all. But again, this information is not really out there in the.
Hold on. When I say disinformation,
hesitant. Large numbers of doctors and health professionals are now calling for a complete halt to the vaccination programme because the risks outweigh the benefits. I give way to my right honourable friend.
Sir Roger, there is a fundamental difference between these kind of vaccines and vaccination per se. Yes. Vaccination per se has saved hundreds of thousands, millions of lives here and elsewhere, but these vaccines are qualitatively different. Science matters, but much matters more.
Yeah, what the man said? These are different.
As you know, Sir Roger, I think in the United States they changed the definition of vaccine, because what we always used to understand as a vaccine was something where you had a small element of the thing against which you were being vaccinated put into your system so that your system could react against a small amount, and then if you were exposed to a larger amount, it would also react against. These vaccines do not use the raw material like old vaccines. Therefore, in many senses, it's a misnomer to describe them as vaccines at all. But again, this information
another misinformation. Hold on. What is someone else say? The government are misinformed the people. Them are lying.
What we always used to understand as a vaccine was something where you had a small element of the thing against which you were being vaccinated put into your system so that your system could react against a small amount, and then if you were exposed to a larger amount, it would also react against. These vaccines do not use the raw material like old vaccines. Therefore, in many senses, it's a misnomer to describe them as vaccines at all. But again, this information is not really out there amongst the public any more than the fact that the booster vaccines have not been tested on humans at all during the studies on them, I think, but only on mice. So people are being used as as victims and for experimentation.
I know
in
me
this, and that's
say
why people are getting worried. So I finished
hold
on
on. I know me say it, you know. Remember,
against which you were being vaccinated, put into your system so that your system could react against a small amount.
Listen.
And then if you were exposed to a larger amount, it would also react against.
Listen.
These vaccines do not use the raw material like old vaccines. Therefore, in many senses, it's a misnomer to describe them as vaccines at all. But again, this information is not really out there amongst the public any more than the fact that the booster vaccines have not been tested on humans at all during the studies on them. I think, but only on mice. So people are being used as victims and for experimentation in this, and that's why people are getting worried. So I finish on this point that Oracle Films, their film Safe and Efficient: A Second Opinion, is available on YouTube, and it sets out and I make no apology for the fact that I participate in that film, Sir Roger, and it sets out a different view about the safety of these vaccines. And I'm not saying we should ban all vaccines of COVID-19, have a complete halt, but what I am saying is that there's an urgent need for the government to get to grips with this issue before more and more people are duped into having vaccines which they probably don't need or not going to.
Yo, hurry up and watch the film because them are going to take it down. Do you understand what is going on? Because all this video here, them now put down commercial product, them are black it, them probably will tell me them violate them. But that's why I'm playing it from the UK Parliament and the EU Parliament, a governmental people, them this. I said this. You are going to, I know me, I said this. But Rasta been said this from 80s, long time. All of these people on the screen you see here is been saying that long time. So it's either all of these people, millions of people, and Rasta smarter than the government, or government do this for on purpose. You can come up with whatever conclusion you want. I am just here to tell the truth on the Approach TV for the Real Youth TV.
At all, but again, this information is not really out there amongst the public any more than the fact that the booster vaccines have not been tested on humans at all during the studies on I think, but only on mice. So people are being used as victims and for experimentation in this, and that's why people are getting worried. So I finish on this point that Oracle Films, their film Safe and Efficient: A Second Opinion, is available on YouTube, and it sets out
opinion available on YouTube. No, them don't take it down. Hurry up and watch it.
And it sets out a different view about the safety of these vaccines. And I'm not saying we should ban all vaccines of COVID-19, have a complete halt, but what I am saying is that there's an urgent need for the government to get to grips with this issue before more and more people are duped into having vaccines which they probably don't need, are not going to do any good to them, and will present risks to their health.
Dupe.
Mr. Bridgen and Mrs. Elphick.
Dupe, the man said dupe. Do you understand what the word dupe mean, people? Do you know what dupe mean?
Could I ask Mr. Bridgen and Mrs. Elphick to confine their remarks
to
6 minutes, please? Mr. Bridgen.
Why you hear that next
thank
man?
You, Sir Roger. It's a pleasure
if
to
you
serve
read this
the
far, might as
chairmanship.
well
I'll
you subscribe.
Curtail my remarks to 6 minutes. However, this is a hugely important debate, overdue.
Hugely.
And what we do know is that those people who've questioned the efficacy or safety of the vaccines have generally been cut down, cancelled, and that's why this is so important. I'm not going to be any sort of expert, but my degree a long time ago was in genetics, behaviour and biochemistry, and science works by challenge, and what we do know is that the science behind these vaccines has not been allowed to challenge. A study in the Journal of American Medical Associations published included 7,806 children aged 5 or younger who were followed for an average of 91.4 days after their first Pfizer vaccination. The study shows that 1 in 500 children under 5 years of age who received a Pfizer mRNA messenger ribonucleic acid COVID vaccine were hospitalised with a vaccine injury, and 1 in 200 had symptoms ongoing for weeks or months afterwards. This is what the study has found. Would the Minister, in response, outline what the government's current policy on vaccination and boosters is, and also outline what our current policy for the vaccination of children is? So 0.5% of the children, so 40 out of the 7,806, had symptoms that were still ongoing, so that it was of unknown significance at the end of the trial. That was a 2 to 4 month follow-up period. So 0.5% of the children had an adverse effect that lasted for weeks or months. 2 cases, the symptoms were confirmed to have lasted longer than 90 days. Given this evidence, perhaps the Minister can explain to us why we're vaccinating healthy children who are at minimal risk from COVID. And surely this is in breach of the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm. We're not in a situation where we can ask young people to risk their lives to protect older people. That's, in a civilised society, that can't be the way it works, Sir Roger, at all. According to the Independent, in April this year, more than 1,200 claims have been made to the Vaccine Damages Payment Scheme, which entitles successful applicants, as my right honourable friend, the member for Christchurch, pointed out, for £120,000 if a causal link between vaccination and severe reaction culminating in injury or death is proven. Does the Minister recognise these figures? Sarah Moore, a lawyer who represents 95 families seeking claims, said her clients felt silenced and ignored, adding that they cannot speak about vaccine harm or linked injuries without being accused of being anti-vax. What's the Minister's view on victims being labelled as anti-vaxxers? The Department of Health and Social Care commissioned research through the National Institute of Health Research. 1.6 million has been allocated for a programme to understand the rare condition of blood clotting with low platelets following vaccination for COVID-19. Does the Minister think this is sufficient? And is there sufficient breadth of investigation considering all the things we're finding out about these vaccines? Where's the cost-benefit analysis by age group for the vaccines, given the risks that they carry? Especially as the pharma companies are now admitting that the vaccination does not impact on transmission. And did the government, at the time of the mandating vaccines for care workers and NHS workers, know that the vaccines had not been tested to whether they actually prevented transmission at the time the mandates were brought in? The Florida Department of Health, Sir Roger, conducted an analysis through self-controlled case series, which is a technique originally developed to evaluate vaccine safety. This analysis found that there is an 84% increase in the relative incidence of cardiac-related death amongst males 18 to 39 within 28 days following a messenger RNA acid vaccination. And with a high level of global immunity to COVID-19, the benefit of vaccination is likely outweighed by this abnormally high risk of cardiac-related death amongst men in this age group. The recommendation now in Florida is that they do not have vaccination of any male under the age of 40. Studying the safety and efficacy of any medications, including vaccines, is an important component of public health. That's the Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph Ladapo. Far less attention has been paid to safety, and the concerns of many individuals have been dismissed. And these are important findings that should be communicated to all Floridians. I would suggest, Sir Roger, these are important findings that should be transmitted to everyone who's had a vaccine or is contemplating having a booster. I also had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Azim Malhotra last week at the APPG launch, and he made a very, very strong case that up to 90% of adverse vaccine reactions are actually not even being reported. And finally, I wish I had longer to speak. Finally, the excess deaths we're suffering at the moment in this country, across Europe and in the Americas. What analysis is the government making of these excess deaths? But even a casual glance at the data shows that there's a very strong correlation between vaccine uptake and the level of excess deaths being found in that country. Surely we must have an investigation. These are tens of thousands of people who are dying more than we're expected. It's really, really important. And I think if we don't get this right, no one's going to believe we're going to lose trust in politicians.
Yeah, now get it right,
we're going to lose trust in our medicine and our medical system. Thank you very much.
That's why they switch out Boris Johnson, because he was complicit and switch out Donald Trump.
Thank you, Sir Roger, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship in this important debate.
Everybody forget, because people get forgetful, real quick.
The process in raising issues which may be contentious may not reflect a majority view, but
of course, they're not going to like you tell the truth. Subscribe to their approach.
This petition has attracted more than 200 signatures in my constituency. In addition, I have written to health ministers on behalf of constituents a number of times on compensation and individual cases of harm. The COVID vaccine development was truly remarkable. The sharing of intellectual property, know-how and scientific endeavour, the rapidity of the regulatory process, the operational rollout across the entire country.
Yes,
we
great
should rightly
project.
be proud of everything that was done to stop the COVID pandemic in its tracks.
Yeah.
However, we are a considerable way on now since the vaccine development. Some sort of ongoing vaccination programme is currently expected to continue. The dust has now settled, yet concerns persist about a number of medical, regulatory and ethical issues, as has been set out already during this debate.
From day one!
Sir Roger, I have had raised with me considered and researched concerns about issues including experiences from constituents. These include variations of the menopause cycle, including concerns about the long-term impact on fertility, whether people can have children, cardiovascular concerns, muscle issues including carpal tunnel syndrome, serious autoimmune responses which have been triggered, and much more besides. It has been the case in the past that concerns about, for example, the MMR, the measles, mumps and rubella vaccination, and had an adverse impact on the take-up before those concerns could be fully allayed. But it has also been the case that authorised regulated drugs have caused immeasurable harm and have had to be withdrawn.
Yeah.
So, Roger, it seems to me that the concerns about this vaccine process have been mounting. It is my view that these issues must be considered and addressed, and they must not be ignored.
Thank to all the protesters. Thank you very much.
Support for a national vaccination programme and to have confidence in this very, very important.
Me nah have no confidence in no man put no foreign object in me.
About how the government is considering and addressing these concerns, and that these concerns are being accepted and taken seriously.
If any joking are going on, me I do it joking. You're mad.
The Scottish National Party, Stephen Bonner, please.
The Scottish National Party.
It's a pleasure to see you in the chair today. And I commend the member for Shelton and Wallington on moving to raise motion on petition 602-171, safety of COVID vaccines. And I'd like to thank all those who have signed the petition, including 119 constituents of my own in Coatbridge, Christton and Bellshill. And I'd also like to thank and place on record all members who have contributed today for thanks and thought-provoking.
Well, I'm glad a member of Parliament them attack and I say the thing,
I'm happy to attend and
you know, say,
my party's
at this point, I think we're going to get the whole idea.
Went through several stages of clinical trials before being approved and met strict independent standards for safety, quality and effectiveness. As I'm sure the Minister... I'll give way.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way, but surely he's well aware of the much publicised interview of a Pfizer representative by the European Parliament committee there only a couple of weeks ago, where they admitted they'd done no testing whatsoever to see whether vaccination prevented transmission of the virus.
Me tell you, say a lie, Mattel.
I heard that, and of course the issue here is that we were protecting the lives of those people who needed the vaccine to be able to get on with their day-to-day.
What about the one them whenever need? Hey, yo, hold on. The man go around where man say.
Thank you. you, Sir Roger, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I also want to commend the way that the honourable gentleman, the member for Carshalton and Wallington, opened.
This is another hired statesman.
Candid support for the...
See my big up the next hired statesman.
Sir Roger, at the start of September, we had a debate in this very Westminster Hall about the COVID-19 vaccine damage payment scheme. I'd like to begin this debate in the same way that I started that one, by saying that the COVID-19 vaccine is safe, effective, and has saved countless lives. I and the entire Shadow Health and Social Care team remain extraordinarily grateful to those who sacrificed countless hours to facilitate our vaccine rollout. We stand here today debating this petition because of the vaccine. Without it, we would probably still be dialing in from our homes, me and Denton, frantically trying to sort my dodgy Wi-Fi and battling my dog for custody of the study chair. Some 51 million people have been fully vaccinated, and more than 150 million doses have been given in the United Kingdom. Without the vaccine and the extraordinary work of scientists, volunteers and NHS staff, we would not have been able to reclaim liberties which we were forced to forfeit over the course
by the government.
As members from across the House will be aware of, any vaccine goes through rigorous and ongoing testing procedures. COVID-19 vaccines went through several stages of clinical trials before being approved and met strict independent standards for safety, quality and effectiveness. As I'm sure the Minister... I'll give way.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way, but surely he's well aware of the much publicised interview of a Pfizer representative by the European Parliament, a committee there only a couple of weeks ago, where they admitted they'd done no testing whatsoever to see whether vaccination prevented transmission of the virus.
Yes, I heard that. And of course, the issue here is that we were protecting the lives of those people who needed the vaccine to...
what I'm saying? I heard that. But he was protecting the life of the people them who needed it. How him know them didn't need it? Who went out and said them needed it? If you never tell people certain things, a matter of fact, where did this virus come from? I have a hunch, but we gonna find out. Or we might not, just like AIDS. We gonna find out. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. We do not know.
Be able to get on with their day-to-day lives. The COVID vaccines did go through several stages of clinical trials before it being approved, and I'm sure, as the Minister will make clear in her response, the MHRA...
That's disinformation!
...the use of the vaccines to ensure that their benefits outweigh any risks, and that's an important fact, so I will give way.
Give way!
I hear what he says, but if the vaccines were so safe, why was it necessary for the vaccine manufacturers to seek an indemnity against liability for negligence from the government and the taxpayer?
Well, I suspect it's because of the rapidity of the rollout that they wanted to have those assurances. But what we know is this is an ongoing process of testing the vaccines.
Yeah,
and
it is a test.
You know, these things are kept
just admit it.
review.
Just admit it.
But if the vaccines were so safe, why was it necessary for the vaccine manufacturers to seek an indemnity against liability for negligence from the government and the taxpayer?
Well, I suspect it's because of the rapidity of the rollout that they wanted to have those assurances. But what we know is this is an ongoing process of testing the vaccines.
You hear him? You hear him? You hear him? Him almost tried to stop, but him couldn't stop. You forfeit no go you. Yeah.
I suspect it's because of the rapidity of the rollout that they wanted to have those assurances. But what we know is this is an ongoing process.
You heard when the next man asked him if the vaccine were so safe, why did they need
study chair?
Why did they need to have indemnity?
The much publicised interview of a Pfizer representative
from the government,
European Parliament committee there only a couple of weeks ago, where they admitted they'd done no testing whatsoever to see whether
listen to him answer
prevented transmission of the virus.
Yes, I heard that, and of course the issue here is that we were protecting the lives of those people who needed the vaccine to be able to get on with their day-to-day lives.
How you know who needed the vaccine? What about the people them that didn't need the vaccine?
For it being approved, and I'm sure, as the Minister will make clear in her response, the MHRA continues to monitor the use of the vaccines to ensure that their benefits outweigh any risks, and that's an important fact. So I will give way.
I hear what he says, but if the vaccines were so safe, why was it necessary for the vaccine manufacturers to seek an indemnity against liability for negligence from the government and the taxpayer?
Well, I suspect it's because of the rapidity of the rollout that they wanted to have those assurances. But what we know is this is an ongoing process of testing the vaccines, and you know, these things are kept under review all the time by the scientists and indeed by the government and the Department for Health and Social Care.
Yeah, we trust them people there.
As has already been mentioned by the honourable gentleman in opening the debate, the MHRA operates the Yellow Card Scheme to collect and monitor information on suspected safety concerns.
And they're paid by the vaccine manufacturers.
Information daily to monitor the vaccine rollout. For this reason, it is not the view of myself nor His Majesty's opposition that the ask of this petition, namely a public inquiry into the COVID-19 vaccine safety, is a necessary one.
Him saying unnecessary.
Extremely rare, and catching COVID-19 without vaccine protection remains overwhelmingly more dangerous than getting the vaccine itself. Where vaccine damage does tragically occur, it is right that individuals and their families can access the vaccine damage payment scheme.
Family at time now when you start ask where this virus come from and start focusing on this vaccine and this fear factor thing. You are going to we need to find out where this came from, because more than likely it's these people pushing the vaccine that created it.
Extremely rare, and catching COVID-19 without vaccine protection remains overwhelmingly more dangerous.
Overwhelming. I guess when you raise your voice, you're more convincing.
I hear what he says, but if the vaccines were so safe, why was it necessary for the vaccine manufacturers to seek an indemnity against liability for negligence from the government and the taxpayer?
Well, I suspect it's because of the rapidity of the rollout that they wanted to have those assurances. But what we
hear them answer with them people you give.
I hear what he says, but if the vaccines were so safe, why was it necessary for the vaccine manufacturers to seek an indemnity against liability for negligence from the government and the taxpayer?
Well, I suspect it's because of the rapidity of the rollout that they wanted to have those assurances. But what we know is this is an ongoing process of testing the vaccines, and you know, these things.
Listen, when you do something repetitiously, you get better at it. So when I'm just a little while every straight every, but him suspect it's the repetition of the rollout. You would get better every time you do a thing.
Are kept under review all the time by the scientists and indeed by the government and the Department for Health.
All of those people working together.
As has already been mentioned by the Honourable Gentleman in opening the debate, the MHRA operates the Yellow Card Scheme to collect and monitor information on suspected safety concerns, and a dedicated team of scientists review information daily to monitor the vaccine rollout.
I hide what they don't want you to know.
It is not the view of myself nor His Majesty's opposition that the ask of this petition, namely a public inquiry into the COVID-19 vaccine safety, is a necessary one. Serious vaccine side effects are extremely rare, and catching COVID-19 without vaccine protection remains overwhelmingly more dangerous than getting the vaccine itself. Where vaccine damage does tragically occur, it is right that individuals and their families can access the vaccine damage payment scheme, which I spoke at length about.
Payment scheme? That means you were damaged in the experiment where we did a run, and we're willing to pay you. Now we make billions off of you anyway.
About that in the previous debate.
Nanotechnology, nanobites, you look up that.
Eligible can indeed access that financial
when you think say a joke them people are dealing, you think say everybody want to roll the world, you think a joke, you think them are wrong.
There has been a significant increase in heart attacks and related health issues since the COVID rollout of the vaccines began in 2021. I appreciate the strength of feeling of those who signed this petition. And I do want to understand more from the Minister about any investigations being undertaken.
Meaning that him no want admit the data. He do not want to admit the data.
That the ask of this petition, namely a public inquiry into the COVID-19 vaccine,
him no want that,
is a necessary one.
All right.
Serious vaccine side effects are extremely rare. And catching COVID-19 without vaccine protection remains overwhelmingly more dangerous than getting the vaccine itself. Where vaccine damage does tragically occur, it is right that individuals and their families can access the vaccine damage payment scheme, which I spoke at length about in September. Now, we must ensure that this very scheme remains fit for the future.
Scheme!
And, I did raise some concerns about that in the...
See, what I love with government, you know, European, you know. They're telling you on your face that you just have to have sense.
Can indeed access that financial support. I have to say, Sir Roger, that the petition claims, and I quote, that there has been a significant increase in heart attacks and related health issues since the COVID rollout of the vaccines began in 2021. I appreciate the strength of feeling of those who signed this petition. And I do want to understand more from the Minister about any investigations being undertaken by the health authorities and by scientists.
Do you?
I will give way.
I thank the Shadow Minister for giving way. Didn't he? Was he not listening to? Not listening to my speech. The report in Florida showed an 84% increase in death from cardiac arrest in men between the age of 18 and 39.
I was indeed listening to his speech, and of
course, you weren't.
If he'd let me finish the sentence, I said I want to understand from the Minister about any investigations being undertaken by health authorities to ascertain whether this is actually the case. Because there is conflicting information. I mean, the Honourable Gentleman talks about a study in Florida, and it's important that we take into account all the information from across the globe. But the data in this country, from the ONS, from the MHRA, and from no public health body actually backs that up. And that's why it's important that all of this data is kept under review and is actually...
No, it don't even be kept under review. It's supposed to be released to the public.
Gives us some assurances that that is being done. Now, as the government made clear in its response to the original petition, there are rare reports of myocarditis and pericarditis which have informed product information advice.
We're not talking about the rare report, we're talking about the increase.
Gentleman for Christchurch pointed out to the House. However, it is worth reinforcing just how rare these specific adverse reactions are.
How rare are they?
Across all vaccines used in the UK, there has been a reporting rate of just 0.01% for myocarditis and for pericarditis. And even where this side effect has occurred, most cases have been mild and individuals have recovered. There is an awful lot of misinformation regarding vaccine efficacy and safety. It's therefore vital that any debate about vaccine safety is led by the facts. I would therefore
First of all, the vaccine that we are getting is not the normal one.
What action she will be taking to tackle vaccine misinformation and to provide accurate reassurance.
What about when the government gives misinformation?
How will she get robust data out there for proper and effective public scrutiny that we can then hopefully reinforce that efficacy?
You take man for fool!
In my capacity as Shadow Public Health Minister about concerns
Shadow Health Public Minister.
To that I would just reiterate MHRA guidance, which clearly states, and I quote, that many suspected ADRs reported on a yellow card do not have any relation to the vaccine or medicine. The yellow card reporting scheme allows individuals and health professionals to report any suspected reactions or side effects, even if the reporter isn't sure what caused.
But hold on. How you can say they're required to do it and then now you say that them don't believe say what them report is right?
It is often the case that events recorded via the yellow card scheme would have happened anyway. I feel very passionately about tackling head on, because the truth is we are not in a position to be complacent. Within the UK, there are still people dying because they have not been vaccinated. Among certain communities is still far too low.
Certain communities, my community, you talk about, go suck yourself!
There are over 20 nations across the world, Sir Roger, who have first dose vaccine rates lower than 20%.
Make me dead.
In a country like Burundi, for example, just 0.2% of people
how many people dead though?
First dose.
How many people dead? Hold on. You not answer me blows and start question because you are, hey, how much people dead?
Misinformation head on, because the truth is we are not in a position to be complacent. Within the UK,
you have to carry on with the mission.
People dying because they have not been vaccinated.
Let us film live.
Uptake among certain communities is still far too low.
Tell me which community it is.
Global. There are over 20 nations across the world, Sir Roger, who have first dose vaccine rates lower than 20%. In a country like Burundi, for example, 0.2% of people have received their first dose.
The
United Kingdom has an important role to play in ensuring low-income countries can access vaccines.
We no want
but also
it!
in making the argument, domestically and on the world stage, that vaccines are safe and they are effective. This not only ensures that we remain better protected against COVID-19 and potential mutations, but also against future pandemics.
Mutation
trust is a key tool in protecting people.
It done mutate multiple times already.
In conclusion, Sir Roger,
them boy are cool.
An important and a wide-ranging debate.
If I know them put in your blouse and start then cool.
We in this house may have different views on.
And the views the man them bring
we
facts.
Also have a responsibility to protect the public health of the people we represent, and that means using our platforms to make it clear that COVID-19 vaccines are safe and they are effective. Something that I'm sure the Minister will wholeheartedly agree with.
A government agent that's what they do. They lie in your face and spin it over and over, and when you speak the truth, them try to lock you down.
For Carl Shelton and Wallington for his kind words regarding the COVID vaccine programme and for bringing this important and timely debate to this House. And it is timely because we started the COVID-19 Boosters Autumn Scheme just a few weeks ago. Before I respond to the points, and I will try and answer all the questions if I can, made by honourable members, I want to thank the members for their support of the vaccine scheme, particularly those on opposition benches from Denton Village and Coatbridge, Crichton and Bells Hill. I'd also like to thank each and every person in the country who's come forward for their jabs, as well as...
You can tell she's an agent.
Volunteers who made the
she is a shadow puppet.
Wellington asked why the vaccine programme had worked so well. And indeed, it worked so well due to the dedication and hard work of all those involved in it.
Program, schemes, project, test, experiment. Those are the words that are being used in the parliament. Like Kyrie said, look up the definition of these words. Don't assume that you know.
The COVID-19 vaccine has been huge, and over 151 million vaccines have been delivered in the UK.
Excellent.
Over 90% of people.
151 nano blood platelets per hour. Yo, 151 million tag. 151 then advance the new liberal world order. Good job.
England, more than 10 million people have stepped forward for their jab. Our safe and effective vaccines have underpinned...
So the one them will step forward for the job. Once them get the majority, they're going to force the minority to take it. Because the minority can't defend it. Because them call that democracy. Wanna take people for fool.
Broader population immunity. Critically, they have also reduced the pressure on the National Health Service. And
yes. Save the government time. You might let out all our prisoners them and all them good thing there. And all them good things. I not too want to hear you. You're agent of the world. You are guaranteed. And I'm not of this world. Move from here. So from me see how you dress and how you look. You're a straight agent.
Question. So he's talking about the vaccine.
What happens if somebody suffers a 50% disability as a result of having the vaccine, an adverse reaction, an unusual event? What does the government do to help that person? It doesn't provide any compensation, it doesn't provide any special help through the health service, it doesn't provide a clinic. What does it do to help those people?
Thank my old friend for his question. So he's talking about the vaccine payment scheme, vaccine damage payment scheme, which has been running since 1979. Which looks at providing a payment, which is a tax-free lump sum one-off payment.
Buy out your blouse and skirt, because that's what I want. Not for no one just get injured on purpose on running on things where millions of people protest. And while they were protesting, you never think so. You think so. Hold on. How all these people protesting and them not dead?
Can still pursue a civil claim should they wish.
But again, on the take people for fall because people are fools.
Friends have asked about whether there should be a separate scheme for COVID, but of course it's right that all vaccines are treated in a similar fashion. My honourable friend from Devices asked a few questions. He asked me about the terms of reference being a matter for the chair, which indeed they are. He also
look here, people, I'm not even wasting no time with this government agent, you know, because if we don't reel this far, if we don't reach this far and not subscribe, something wrong. I'm here telling us straight up. Me not make no fun of them people that will take the job. You know, in accordance with the CDC and the NIH and the World Health Organization and the New World Liberal Order and the government of the world and the United States and Jamaica, the vaccine save life. But me not take it, because I don't save my life. So if you want to go and take it, go and go take it. Because Boston University already done say them clone. And next one already. So them assure you say them make it again. Right? And them try it on humanized mice. Them retract the article and go on like a lie. But again, this your file you are going to get batch on it and downtrodden. So I want you to share it. Give me a like if you watch it and like any of it. Make me know because I spend about 2 hours I do this documentary here. This here look talk here. And every day I do the thing here. But I've always wanted to inform the people. So all the content, video and things that you see in there is fair use. Your guarantee is for teaching, for spreading the news of what's going on in the European Parliament, in the Crown's Parliament in England, and I should have put in some things that's going on in the American Parliament. So some of the politicians know, and I'm a play a good guy and bad cop, and the people them are so docile at this time because the whole project seemed to have worked worldwide and most of the people, because this was a behavioral modification. It even catch me. You have the Rasta man by YouTube attack. So what I do now, he must start listen to me and I say, boy, me are this kind of person and call me all kind of names. Me no have no time for it, cause Babylon I use them brain. But guess what? And me I go bust the chain because of mentalness. You see, what them do, them use technology and curb the algorithms and push up them little Pharisees and scribes and the little idiot thing them. What them want to distract the people them with. And nobody's asking about the biggest virus will hit us in this time, the biggest vaccine rollout program, the biggest payout scheme, the biggest shift of wealth, multi-billion year, make more billions and billions and billions and billions, and them sit down the people them and dumb down the people them and don't grasp up all the information and put it on two browser, Bill Gates, put it on Google and have Zuckerberg, we own Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. How we own all of them there? He's an agent of the government. And we are all logged into the matrix, ladies and gentlemen, although we know how we are going to come out of it. The people that protest the tyrannic role and takeover of humanity. Them say you have democracy. Hey, hey, people, yo, you see when people get fooled? You see when people get fooled? Them shut up. Uno no see the big old trick. After Orange Man come and I tell Uno the truth, Uno get rid of Orange Man, a foreign, and everything where Orange Man say from the medication to the location of this pandemic virus is going to be proven to the war all over. Yo, listen to me. I am not promoting nobody, but I and I man love truth and rights. I want you tell me the truth. Do not sell me a lying fruit. Thank you for tuning in to Day Approach. Ladies and gentlemen, if you make it through this whole thing here, listen to me. Hit that red subscribe button and leave your comment. I'm Rastafari Soldier, Day Approach TV. I and I man not touch a topic here no more. Because I notice every time I touch them topic here, the algorithm for my channel get pushed down. So I beg you to share this for me. Share it for me. Make you listen. Share it, save it, put it on the queue. When you got your bed, listen to what go on. Early morning, listen to it. You guarantee it might take you a while to listen. But if this not proves to them people you know what go on, pan what go on, and a peer experiment, them and them a try, and this was a worldwide experiment, a governmental team up with different governments in different countries, technology companies, all kind of things, school agency, all kind of things. This was the changing of the world. Digital money them are bringing in. If you starve, you feel break you now. Because if you don't have nothing to buy something, and you don't have no food, what you gonna do? You better follow the golden rule. You are gonna take a long time when I tell you. No found no take the job. I don't know what in the job. You don't know if it good or bad. Yeah, them take man for fool. But guess what? A lot of people are fools. I'm Rastafari Soldier, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, this is a special watch. Don't
say from them mix with the fire, them have to mix with the lightning. Them mix with the lightning, them have to mix with the thunder. Them mix with the them got to mix with the rain. And they so black people put the wicked them under. Hey Babylon, me see them a fret and them a wonder. Who flashy like the nana, who roll the thunder. Deep root flashy like the nana, him roll the thunder. Babylon, me see that them a panda. Look how much of the youth them, well them fret and kill, look how much them put under. How much of the youth them, well them send a dove cut ya. Where Babylon the fire burn no longer. Babylon the proofs for that say you can't turn ya. Fire king, Rastaman and a real fire king. Whoa, fire king, Rastafari Soldier, fire king. Yeah, balalang I can't wait. Pick up the